Picture this. It's 1932. You're signing a $1 million studio contract, the dream of a lifetime. But buried in the fine print is a morality clause that could destroy everything. For you, that clause is a time bomb, because you're holding a secret that, if exposed, won't just end your career, it could land you in prison. This was the terrifying reality for performers who became superstars while hiding in plain sight, building legacies on secrets that would only surface decades later. Subscribe now, because the stories Hollywood buried are finally coming to light. Julian Eltinge. America's most beautiful woman was a man. Imagine a time when the most celebrated, highest-paid female star on the American stage, a woman so graceful she had a theater named in her honor on New York's famed 42nd Street, was actually a man. His name was Julian Eltinge, and long before Hollywood's golden age had even dawned, he was one of America's most beloved performers. Born William Julian Dalton in 1881, Eltinge revolutionized entertainment with his incredible ability to present as a beautiful, elegant woman in an age when the slightest misstep could mean prison. He wasn't some niche act confined to burlesque circuits. He was a legitimate mainstream superstar performing under the shadow of the Comstock Act, laws that gave the government sweeping power to prosecute anything deemed immoral. What made Eltinge extraordinary was his absolute commitment to creating perfect illusion. Unlike many female impersonators who presented broad, winking caricatures, Eltinge's performances were masterclasses in subtlety and realism. He studied women's movements with scientific precision, creating characters so believable that audiences gasped when he removed his wig at show's end. He even launched his own cosmetics line, becoming a trusted arbiter of femininity itself. To counter whispers about his masculinity, studio photographers staged elaborate sessions showing him boxing, smoking cigars, every inch the masculine ideal. But as the conservative 1930s arrived, new city ordinances targeting cross-dressing swept the nation, and Eltinge's career crumbled tragically. Bert Savoy, the man who taught Mae West to sizzle. In the Roaring '20s, a single saucy phrase echoed coast to coast, uttered with a knowing wink. "You don't know the half of it, dearie." The man behind that line was Bert Savoy, a vaudeville legend whose flamboyant style would help shape one of Hollywood's most iconic women. Born Everett Mackenzie, Savoy took an approach entirely opposite to Julian Eltinge's delicate realism. If Eltinge was a carefully constructed oil painting, Savoy was a dazzling firework. His act was a joyous, over-the-top celebration of outrageous humor and vibrant personality. With his bright red hair, exaggerated makeup, and outlandish costumes that defied gravity and good taste, Savoy never tried convincing audiences he was actually a woman. Instead, he invited them in on the joke, creating shared conspiratorial delight. What's particularly fascinating about Savoy is his profound influence on Mae West. Known for her suggestive dialogue, confident swagger, and exaggerated sensuality, Mae West's persona was essentially Savoy's female impersonation act adapted for her own career. The walk, the vocal cadence, the confident hip-swaying attitude, it was all pure Savoy, repurposed and perfected. Savoy's life came to a theatrical end in 1923. While walking on a beach during a thunderstorm, he reportedly pointed to the sky after a lightning bolt and quipped, "That'll be me, darling." Moments later, a second bolt struck, claiming his life instantly, a dramatic ending for a performer who lived with such flair. Ray Bourbon. The voice too bold for its time. Some voices are too bold for their time. To understand the risk Ray Bourbon was taking, you have to understand the world he lived in. An America where indecency laws could land a man in prison simply for the clothes he wore or the words he sang on stage. Every performance was a gamble. Born Hal Wadsworth, Bourbon's act walked a dangerous line, celebrated in private and condemned in public. Unlike his contemporaries, he was deliberately provocative, pushing boundaries others wouldn't dare approach. He recorded comedy albums with titles like An Intimate Evening with Ray Bourbon, featuring suggestive material that shocked and delighted audiences in equal measure. His recordings were so controversial that most record stores refused to carry them, forcing him to sell them directly to fans at live performances, often from a suitcase in the lobby. For a time, he enjoyed a significant following, testament to his wit and daring. But as cultural conservatism of the 1930s and 40s took hold, Bourbon's star faded from the mainstream. The legal pressure was immense. He was arrested multiple times on vague morals charges, a common tactic used to harass non-conforming performers. He was increasingly relegated to nightclubs and underground venues, his voice pushed further into entertainment's margins. The final chapter reads like a Hollywood tragedy. In 1968, at age 76, he was implicated in a serious crime and passed away in 1971 while serving his sentence, a sad culmination for a life once lived so boldly in the spotlight. Barbette. The angel who defied gravity and gender. Imagine the scene, a 1920s Parisian music hall, air thick with anticipation. High above the crowd, a spotlight catches a lone figure of breathtaking grace and femininity, balancing on a wire, seemingly weightless. The audience is captivated by her beauty and skill. But the performance holds one final stunning revelation that would elevate it from entertainment to high art. This was the magic of Barbette, an artist who transcended gender through astonishing aerial acrobatics. Born Vanderclyde Broadway in Texas, Barbette created an act so unique it influenced some of the 20th century's greatest artistic minds. The sheer physical strength required was immense, yet every movement radiated delicate, poetic grace. His performance was revolutionary in structure. He would begin his trapeze and wire-walking act presenting entirely as a glamorous, elegant woman, executing dangerous maneuvers with defiant calm. Then at the conclusion, after receiving applause, he would gracefully remove his wig, wipe away makeup, and strike a masculine pose, revealing his true identity. This wasn't a simple trick. It was profound commentary on gender as performance. The intellectual and artistic elite of Europe were mesmerized. He became a muse to the Surrealist movement. Legendary filmmaker Jean Cocteau wrote of him, "Barbette is an angel, a flower, a bird." Unlike many performers relegated to vaudeville stages, Barbette achieved mainstream success at prestigious venues like the Casino de Paris and London Palladium. Gladys Bentley, the queen who wore a tuxedo. In the vibrant, pulsating heart of the Harlem Renaissance, when jazz was king and culture was being reborn, one performer shattered every rule. Dressed in a white tuxedo and top hat, Gladys Bentley commanded the stage with unforgettable power and charisma. While the other performers on our list were men who presented as women, Bentley's story runs in the opposite direction, providing a fascinating counterpoint. Bentley came to prominence performing at iconic Harlem venues like the Clam House and the Ubangi Club, places that pulsed with creative energy. Her act was revolutionary. She would sit at the piano, a commanding figure in her tailored tuxedo, and sing blues songs with lyrics so witty and audacious, often improvising new, more risque verses on the spot, they delighted and sometimes astonished even the relatively permissive audiences of the 1920s. Her physical presence was as powerful as her voice. Standing tall and strong, she didn't simply wear men's clothing. She inhabited masculine presentation with complete confidence, at times even sporting a thin mustache to complete the look. What truly set Bentley apart was her remarkable openness about her personal life at a time when such acknowledgement was almost unheard of. She reportedly entered into a civil ceremony with a woman in Atlantic City, an extraordinarily brave act in an era when such relationships were taboo. For a time, she was one of New York's most famous entertainers, a symbol of the artistic and personal freedom the Harlem Renaissance represented. T.C. Jones, The Mask That Fooled Broadway, In the conservative landscape of the 1950s, a time of rigid conformity, one performer achieved the seemingly impossible. He brought female impersonation back to the Broadway stage, not as simple comedy, but as high theatrical art. His name was T.C. Jones, and he found surprising acceptance in the era of Eisenhower and McCarthy by elevating his craft to new sophistication. Born in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Jones developed an act that focused on celebrity impressions rather than generic female characters. His impersonations of stars like Bette Davis, Tallulah Bankhead, and Katharine Hepburn weren't broad caricatures but nuanced character studies. He captured not just their appearances, but their very essence, their specific mannerisms, vocal patterns, and unique personalities. His one-man show, Mask and Gown, opened in Los Angeles in 1957 and was so successful it moved to Broadway the following year. Critics, including the powerful Walter Kerr of the New York Herald Tribune, praised his performances not as novelty, but as serious acting, comparing his remarkable transformations to legitimate character actors. Unlike many earlier performers relegated to nightclubs, Jones appeared on mainstream television, including popular programs like The Ed Sullivan Show and What's My Line. He even broke into Hollywood films, appearing in the 1968 movie Funny Girl alongside Barbra Streisand. His legacy lies in how he helped bridge the gap between vaudeville-era female impersonation and contemporary understanding of drag as an art form. Jim Bailey, the ghost of Judy Garland. The year is 1970. The world is still mourning the loss of the incomparable Judy Garland. Then a performer takes the stage who doesn't just imitate her, but seems to channel her very essence, her vulnerability, and her incredible power. His name was Jim Bailey, and his talent was so profound it felt like resurrection. As television became the dominant entertainment medium, Bailey emerged as perhaps the most successful female impersonator of the broadcast era, his uncanny recreations of celebrities fooling even industry insiders. His most famous impersonation was of Judy Garland, which he performed with such breathtaking precision it became a cultural phenomenon. Bailey's accuracy wasn't limited to appearance. He could recreate Garland's vocal mannerisms and singing voice so perfectly that in audio-only formats, even experts sometimes had difficulty distinguishing between them. But his recreation went deeper than mere technique. He studied her posture, the way she held a microphone, the catch in her throat before a big note. He captured the vulnerability, the tragic dimensions, and raw emotional power that made Garland herself so compelling. He received the ultimate validation when Garland's own daughter, Liza Minnelli, not only approved of his tribute, but became a friend and supporter, even attending his shows. Bailey achieved unprecedented mainstream television exposure, appearing on major network programs, bringing his art form directly into millions of American homes by presenting his performances as character acting rather than drag. Danny LaRue, Britain's beloved darling. Across the Atlantic, a performer was achieving a level of fame and affection that was simply extraordinary. He was a beloved entertainer, nightclub owner, and television star who was even a favorite of British royalty. He was Danny LaRue, and for decades he was Britain's darling. Born Daniel Patrick Carroll in Ireland, LaRue created an extravagant, glamorous style of female impersonation that made him one of Britain's highest-paid and most cherished entertainers. His performances were characterized by lavish costumes and production values that rivaled major Broadway shows, gowns shimmering under stage lights, so heavy with beads and feathers they weighed more than the man himself. Each one was a work of art. Unlike many performers who worked primarily in small clubs, LaRue owned his own fashionable nightclub in London's West End, a popular destination for celebrities and socialites. In a mark of his complete acceptance, Princess Margaret was reported to be a particular fan of his performances, lending royal seal of approval to an art form often considered marginal. LaRue broke barriers on British television, appearing regularly on mainstream programs and even hosting his own specials. His Christmas shows became a holiday tradition for many families, bringing female impersonation directly into middle-class living rooms. What made this mainstream acceptance possible was partly his brilliant approach. He often described himself as a comic in a frock rather than a female impersonator, presenting his act as family-friendly comedy. Billy Tipton, the jazz man who fooled everyone. For over 50 years, Billy Tipton was a beloved husband, a devoted father, and a respected jazz musician. He lived a full American life, but carried a profound personal truth that would only be revealed after his final breath, a truth that would challenge everything we thought we knew about identity. Born Dorothy Lucille Tipton in 1914, Billy began presenting as male in the 1930s. While this may have initially been motivated by greater professional opportunities available to male musicians, it quickly became clear this wasn't a professional strategy, but an expression of his true self. His musical career took him through the dance bands of the era, eventually leading to formation of the popular Billy Tipton Trio. What makes Tipton's story extraordinary is the completeness of his identity in private life. He had multiple long-term relationships with women, including several marriages, and together with his wife Kitty, he adopted and raised 3 sons. By all accounts, he was a loving, if sometimes distant father, and devoted husband. His partners and children later affirmed they had no idea he'd been assigned female at birth. It wasn't until his passing in 1989, at age 74, that paramedics made the discovery. The revelation sent shockwaves through his family and the world. His adopted son, Billy Tipton Jr., later said, "He'll always be Dad." Unlike others whose gender crossing was stage performance, Billy Tipton's transformation was his entire life, not an act, but an identity. From Julian Eltinge's perfect illusions to Divine's revolutionary provocations, these artists fought a quiet battle for the right to perform. They challenged, entertained, and ultimately changed American culture in ways we're still discovering today. Their courage and talent opened doors, creating a legacy of performance that continues to enrich our world. Their history was almost lost, buried by changing tastes and social pressure, but their influence is undeniable. They are the ghosts in the machine of modern entertainment, the architects of an art form built on courage, creativity, and yes, mascara. Some hid behind marriages and public personas. Others lived their truth so completely, even their families never knew. A few burned so brightly, they changed culture itself. Each one carried secrets that could have destroyed them. Each one performed not just on stage, but in every moment of their lives. And each one reminds us that identity, gender, and truth are far more complex than the simple stories Hollywood tried to tell. They weren't just entertainers, they were pioneers, rebels, and survivors who refused to let the world's narrow definitions contain them. Their legacy lives on in every performer who dares to challenge convention, in every person who chooses authenticity over acceptance, and in every story that refuses to stay buried. If these forgotten histories moved you, subscribe and share, because the truth deserves to be remembered.